everyone. Welcome to our office hours today. We've got an hour today to just go through deals and things we're seeing and projects we're working on here in the real estate space. So we've got Tyler Cobble with us today up in Nashville, and I'm Dave Kodra here in Atlanta. So we're excited to kick off things. We've got about 3-4 deals we're going to look at, and we're going to talk a little bit about AI as well and how we're actually making improvements to our operating businesses with that stuff. So Tyler, you were kicking off here with this Kubi Casa concept. What's this helping with?
Yeah, it's a great little app. So it's free to get on your phone, and I've got an iPhone. I'm sure it works on Android as well. But one of the big problems that we have whenever we're taking over buildings, especially if they've existed for a little while and gone through a couple of ownership changes, they're probably going to have either old blueprints or inaccurate floor plans, which means every time that we come into a new space, we're having to spend money on having someone come in and shoot proper floor plans. However, with Kubi Casa, which is a great little app, it's free for like their basic version, but you can always update, upgrade, different things on the floor plans. It takes me 5 minutes to walk through a space. I'll pull up an example right here. This one was 3167 square feet. I'm sharing my screen right now. You can see, like we walked through, it pulls out the doors. It even shows windows. It's got measurements. Let me see if I can actually zoom in on this page so you guys can see it a little bit better. But look at that. And within 24 hours, they turn it around. So it's a pretty simple app. But I mean, look at that. That looks like something that look at this. It even pulled out the water heater. Isn't that crazy? But it's pretty simple app.
Yeah, we spend so much time. Cost is one thing, but time is another huge component of real estate, which always seems to drag on longer than it always should for anything. So like using these tools, right? Because we're using it where we have like a white box space that we got to go in and walk with the tenants. Like, hey, where would you like the walls? In the past, we were always sending that to an architect, and they drop the space plan. And we got a general idea, and then you want to make some changes. You want to move the wall back 2 or 3 feet. You want to see how this piece of equipment they have fits in the space, and they want to move things around. Well, that was always like iterations back and forth, and it's like this is just taking too long. So now you're using Kubi Casa. We're just using Claude when we do it, and we're just saying, hey, here's the layout that we would like to see made. We literally upload the drawings on a piece of paper. Most tenant stuff, I feel like they take a piece of paper, they edit it, they write on it, and they give you like, here's what I would like to see back. And we can take those comments and put in there and literally, get an updated floor plan pretty darn quickly. And no, it's not one that we're going to go pull permits with, but at least the architect isn't making like 42 different changes on stuff and consuming a lot of time.
That's right. I mean, with these types of tenants, especially like when you're looking at flex tenants, more often than not, they're sub 5,000 square feet. These are people that want to move quickly, right? Because they're not planning 12 months in advance. They're saying, hey, my lease is coming up in 60 days. I've got to make a decision pretty quick. And so if you're able on a tour or, on a first phone call to just go through screen share, show them what this floor plan could be, get everybody decided on it and say, okay, if we could execute a letter of intent based on, all of the rest of the terms, then we'll go and send this to an architect, spend the money. That way, you're not having to spend money before you even know if you've got a deal.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's been very helpful.
And time.
Time is critical. Especially, we got a lot of stuff too where a tenant will look at a space. That doesn't mean they're actually going to rent it. You're going to go through at least a handful of tours, especially in that sub 5,000 square foot space. You're going to tour a couple people. They're all going to have some questions. They all have some ideas they want to see, and then you got to respond to all of them. So you could be doing 25 renditions if you're using an architect the whole time.
Yeah, that really starts to add up. The nice thing too about this is that you could sit there and just continue to tweak it and come up with all sorts of different versions of that floor plan, because you and I have seen a ton of empty spaces and what they can become. It's very easy for us as real estate investors to understand the vision and what it would take to get it somewhere. Sometimes business owners are very good at that, right? Especially if they've built, if it's Dollar General or Taco John's or whomever, they've done hundreds, if not thousands of leases. Like they understand how this process works. But when you're talking to the local mom and pop HVAC company or, whoever else is renting flex space from you, they may have never been through a build out before. They may not understand what a space could be, what it could look like. And so just being able to quickly show that to them substantially increases your chances of getting a deal done.
Yeah, definitely. And we even looked at that from like the size of the garage door. You kind of look, you're like, it's just a door. It's like, well, you actually need this thing to be as big as possible. Like you're driving a truck through there. It's like, you don't want like 6 inches on each side. You kind of want 2 feet on each side. So you got some room to get through this stuff.
Yeah.
That ties into, we were talking earlier as well about just how deals change over time. And you start with one idea and literally it's completely different. Sometimes just a few days after you walk the thing later, it's totally different. But we had this on our Hutto deal that we were working on down in Texas. We went down there. We're looking at building, again, these like sub 5,000 square foot flex buildings. Like, okay, we could do 90,000 square feet. It'll fit in here. This works. And then after models and CapEx costs and going back and forth on everything, now we're looking at building 3 iOS sites in the same location. Totally different business plan. So, but that part of that was all done with like, how do we run the analysis through AI to do it quicker? How do we do the drawings and the layouts and stuff to make sure the roads fit and the parking all lines up, make sure we have exactly what we need? And then ultimately we did that analysis a couple of times and it came back to, hey, we're going to put in iOS sites instead of pure flex spaces. So that was a big change. And now, I mean, it's taken us a while to do that and come up with what the plan is, but it's been an interesting evolution of how a project will change significantly over a couple months.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just goes to show that, you show the same property to 10 different investors and you'll get 10 different plans. There's so many different ways to do any of these deals. It really comes down to, what are you comfortable with? Let's sit here, let's iterate on it. Let's keep massaging the deal and figure out what it's going to be, right? I mean, we do this all the time. I have a parking lot that I just opened, a 26 spot parking lot here in East Nashville that was originally going to be a $1.4 million event space. And we started looking at it and we're like, okay, well, based on, I brought in a parking lot management company to review it. And they said, oh, we should be able to make you about $5,000 to $6,000 a month if this was just a parking lot. And I was like, well, hell, I mean, okay, twist my arm, go out and spend $1.4 million to build out this event space and get a nice triple net lease, or spend $55,000 to demo the existing building, to grade the lot, to bring in, crusher run and put 26 parking spots there. So, obviously that was a very different direction. I'd already hired architects. We were already designing the event space, but sometimes as you keep working on it, you keep having conversations around it, you keep thinking about it. It's good to let the deal evolve.
Yeah. How quick do you think that deal is going to change from like the beginning to the first actual dollar of cash flow in the door from a development standpoint to now just a parking lot standpoint? Do you look at it that way? Like how much faster that's going to be?
Yeah, I mean, we made $1,000 or $1,100 the first month that it was open. I was like, it took me, 2 weeks to tear the building down and grade it, and then we already had cash flow coming through the door. If we were doing the development, it made it be 18 months. So like $1,000 obviously is not a lot of money. People have to ramp up. They have to see like, okay, there's a parking lot here. Now I can start parking. Yeah. But $1,000 in month 1 versus $5,000 in month 19. I think I'll take $1,000 month 1 and build on it from there.
Yeah. Especially with no real recurring costs.
Right. I mean, there's nothing. I drive by it almost every day just because it's in East Nashville. So I'll stop by and pick up trash every now and then. Like I don't even have to hire somebody to go and pick up trash. It's like there's so little that actually happens there. I mean, our costs are a mortgage and insurance, which I think is $800 a year, maybe, and then property taxes. That's literally it.
And how's the arrangement work with the parking company? Because there are some huge parking companies out there, right? So they just take a fee for doing it. Like, is there a floor and then like a split on going above it, or is it all variable?
No. I mean, everybody does something differently, right? It depends on what level of tech you're probably going to do too, right? I mean, because now you see these parking lots that have those AI cameras that read your license plate and then automatically shoot you a text like, hey, welcome to the lot. You're being charged already. Whereas, this one's pretty low tech. I mean, they installed all of the signage, which is pretty nice. They handle all of the parking lot enforcement. They spent all of that money up front. I didn't have to spend anything. I just had to give them the parking lot. And I want to say it's a 30% share to them for doing that. So, which is pretty great. I mean, I don't have to do anything.
Yeah. How long is the agreement with them for?
I think honestly it's month to month. So I mean, I can go in a different direction at any time because they're, I've known this guy for years. They're a good parking lot management company here in Nashville. And, I think that they're kind of the mindset of like, we want to continue earning our business, every month. Which I appreciate.
That's kind of that philosophy of like, look, if you don't want to do business anymore together, it's like, you got to find a way to not do it and not like have some drawn out thing that's terrible.
Yeah. I mean, well, especially for something like that, like I understand with a lot of vendors why they have to have a a 3-month or 6-month or 12-month contract, because they're actually spending a lot of time, effort, resources, etc., to add this into what they're doing. But for them, they're already managing parking lots in the area, so it costs them almost next to nothing to just stop in, check some license plates, and then move on to the next one. Yeah. And so they also keep 100% of the boot fees, which I actually like, because somebody had brought that up. They're like, well, don't you think that they should be sharing the ticketing fees with you? And I was like, no, not really. Like, I want them to be heavily incentivized to be ticketing anybody that's not paying in this lot, so that everybody knows, don't park in the lot unless you're paying.
Yeah, you're going to actually get ticketed.
That's how I make money. Yeah.
Yeah. If it becomes lax and you got like a dead car in there, it's like, that's obviously no good.
Exactly.
We see that on just every commercial building. Like, you've got to be super diligent on, if you've got some dead cars in there. It was always the worst at apartment buildings, where you'd be like, has this car moved in a week? Or is like, what's this thing doing? If it's in, or you see a tag starts coming off stuff, you got to get that out of there.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. There's some assets that are obviously very easy to deal with that in, like, retail. When we've got shopping centers, you see a car there for more than a week, you're like, well, yeah, obviously this person's not supposed to be here. Apartment complexes, yeah, that's pretty tough. Like, maybe the guy just works from home and he hasn't had to go to the grocery store. Or maybe it's iOS. Like, I've seen this at iOS too, where, you really have to stay on top of it, because people will just abandon vehicles. And it's like, okay, well, now we got to deal with that.
Yeah. It's definitely, there's always something fun and interesting to work through. All right. So Hutto, we're going to try and build 3 of these iOS sites. They're basically 3-acre sites with about a 10 to 12,000 square foot building. And the leasing demand for this stuff has been very strong, and essentially looking to get a 7 to 10 year lease out of a tenant that's going in there, either like an equipment or even HVAC or that kind of stuff. That could be the tenant. So that's the next direction of that deal, and that's probably half the cost of building an actual flex full building with multi-tenant layout. So,
well, here's what I love about this. I mean, first of all, it has all the same fundamentals or same demands that flex space would have, right? You've got decent visibility right off the interstate in a growing market, down the street from the Samsung plant, right? I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar facility that's going to have a lot of demand from, again, you said HVAC. Well, somebody's going to have to get the contract to work on the HVAC in that plant. It's going to be a full-time gig. And so these types of businesses are going to want to be there to help service that. And on the flip side too, because iOS has really risen and it's in vogue these days. You've got a lot of private equity firms that are paying a lot of money, like really decent cap rates for these assets. And so there's a very strong exit plan here too, to lease it and flip it on a cap rate to a private equity firm.
Yeah. When we look at the math on the deal, we're looking at the rent per square foot on the physical building, but then we're also looking at the rent per foot to rent per acre on the laydown yard and what the structure of that yard is that's out there. So that's not just a dirt patch that people are on. It has, it's graded and structured with gravel and everything on it. So it's very solid in the depth there to make sure that it's actually usable for heavy equipment, to everything to be on there. But we're renting both of those pieces in the analysis to see if this is a viable product or not. But obviously, it's cheaper to build a parking lot than it is, as long as it's not a multi-story parking lot, right? A gravel parking lot compared to a full building. So
yeah, well, I think you bring up a good point there, because some people will go, well, there's land everywhere. Why can't somebody just pull off on the side of the road and park their equipment? Well, look, I mean, I've got a small skid steer, a small one. It's like the smallest one that John Deere makes. And it's 9,000 pounds. 9,000 pounds. You throw that on a trailer, then you put a truck in front of that to carry it. That's a heavy, heavy piece of equipment. It's going to do a lot of damage. If I drive into a dirt lot when it's slightly rainy, that thing is getting stuck and we're not going anywhere. And now I can't go work, right? And so it's important to have a graded lot that has the proper fill, that has, the big gravel underneath it, and build in with the crusher run so that it doesn't compact and fall into the mud. That's what these contractors are paying for. And that's what makes this different than just a regular lot off the side of the street.
Yeah. And that kind of ties to Peerless as well, right? So we're looking at the iOS site just south of Chattanooga. And I mean, this is a great building for it, because it already has the covered portion, right? Most of the sites we're looking at, if you can have a freestanding building that someone can use, it doesn't need to be super fancy, but it's got to have walls, it's got to have a roof, it's got to be a usable space with concrete floor. And then it has to have the gravel laydown yard. It's got to be fenced. It's got to have easy access. So there's a lot of things that go into it. But the site just south of Chattanooga looks like it's going to be great for that.
Oh, it's perfect for it. I mean, you've got a lot of that going on around it already. You're not even 5-6 minutes from the interstate through a major corridor, 10 minutes south of downtown Chattanooga. I think maybe 12 to 15 minutes from the airport. So it's very well located. But, I love the history of this property because it's funny. After I bought it, I realized when I talked to you about it, you were like, you do remember that this was the deal that we were talking about, because I had completely forgotten about that. It was like back in 2018 or 2019, y'all were looking at this deal, and it had hundreds of thousands of square feet of industrial vacant. I was just a broker back then. I was like, dude, let me come in and help you lease this thing out. Let's get it going. And y'all ended up passing on it. And funny enough, we bought it like 2 years later, not realizing it was the same one.
Yeah, it's crazy. But this is a great site for it. It's like it's such a big project, but finding like what parts of the project work for specific things. There's obviously there's some huge tenants that are in there now using space, but the iOS usage is one that's been in demand. We can get good rates on it, and we can do this stuff relatively quickly. Everything else that's kind of working is going to take a lot of time. When we're just comparing Hutto of like, hey, we got to build this whole thing, or we can build this iOS site. The timeline was about half. So yeah, it's a huge benefit when you're looking at any kind of investment. The faster you can actually get to cash flow in the door, the better, right? Like that's key. But
especially in today's market, because there's so much uncertainty out there. But yeah, I mean, that's what's really exciting about this opportunity. I'm pulling it up on my phone right now so I can measure out the lot. But like this building specifically, it's 43,000 square feet, so it's relatively ready to go, and it's got a fenced in lot out front that is over an acre. It's almost 50,000 square feet that sits out front of a 43,000 square foot building, ready to be, graded, cleared, and handed off to some iOS tenants.
Yeah, and there's already in that area, there's already a few iOS users around there. So it kind of proves the point of like, yes, people are using this space and it fits there. The zoning allows for it. Zoning is a part that you got to make sure it's there, it works, or else it's going to be a pain in the butt. But
yeah, the nice thing is the zoning allows us to essentially do whatever we want. And one of those
that part is fantastic.
Yeah, that's pretty great. It helps. But yeah, one of those tenants is one of our that's next door that's doing the iOS is one of our tenants at Friars Crossing.
Yeah. Yes, we're like, as soon as we pulled it up, we're like, we know this group. They're a tenant of one of our other buildings. So
those guys are all over town.
Yeah, they're big. So cool. All right, let's talk about another one here. We've got another deal that's look at my notes here. We're kind of calling it iron container. Every time we pick how do we name a deal? How do we remember it? The more and more we talk about the deal, it's like what kind of words stick with what it is. We number all of the deals, but then we got to come up with some kind of name. It's like, hey, you remember that deal? And this one we're just calling it iron container because it's a big warehouse building that's out in Greenville, South Carolina. And this is one that's already built and it's already has a tenant in it. So it's different from the last two we talked about. We're like, hey, we got to go create something. This one is really an in-place triple net lease. So we look at these deals and they're very different, but we do look at all those aspects. We're not just doing stuff that's physical value add. We're then also looking at what can we do from a lease standpoint. And this is a very interesting tenant. It's a large tenant. They've been in business a very long time. It's their main manufacturing location, and they've got a 10-year lease on the site. So here we've got a 10-year lease. We've got set annual increases. We can come in at around a 7.9 cap is what we're coming in at. And then it just keeps growing each year. The real value creation is we do a good job with that tenant. It is triple net lease, so they're responsible for a lot of it, but we still have to, work with that tenant and help them make sure the site works as best as we can for them. And then if we can get another 10-year lease after that, an extension, that's really how these bigger net lease deals work, where that can turn into a home run for us.
Yeah. I mean, that's for a tenant to have a 10-year lease in a property like this already tells you how they feel about being in the area, being in the market. Generally tenants are not signing 10-year leases unless they really do not want to have to move. right? I mean, they are calling this home. And so chances are good, 10 years down the road, as long as that business and industry hasn't changed, which I think we all have a hard time seeing how that could happen with this specifically, they're probably going to renew. And look, Greenville, I mean, can you imagine Greenville in 10 years? I mean, as much of a astronomic rise it has had in the last 5 years alone, that's a cool town, man.
Yeah, no,
it's got a lot going for it.
When they redid that waterfront in their downtown Main Street, like it's such a nice area. And I can't imagine. I haven't looked at like what the retail rates are for downtown Greenville, but I imagine they're very strong. They're impressive. But that whole town has done really well, and it's a great place. We've owned deals there for almost 10 years that we've been in that market, and it's always performed really well. So we're excited about this one, and the net lease component is very interesting. We've probably done about 30 net lease deals where we don't have a lot of responsibility, but we have a tenant relationship we got to manage, and we work on, what's the renewal going to look like and how do we keep them there and what makes it a good deal for both sides. And they've typically been strong performers on just generating current cash flow that can be distributed to investors. Yeah,
I mean, what I like about them is they're so predictable, right? There's not a whole lot that you're going to have to worry about. There's no vacancy coming up in 6 months. Okay, will we or will we not, get at least as quickly as our pro forma says? Like, no, we've got predictable cash flow for the next 10 years, backed by a personal and or corporate guarantee. We get to review those financials to make sure that they are, strong enough to justify the investment, because that's what this comes down to, right? And then, of course, like the nice thing about triple net, of course, like get the property inspected, get the building inspected. You got to check all the boxes, but it comes down to the lease. And a lease is very easy to review and make sure that it is everything that you want.
Yeah. And the risk, the bet, kind of what we're betting on with the net lease is what is the interest rate market going to do? Most buyers of real estate are going to have debt. As the interest rate goes down, the value of any kind of cash flow, the discounted cash flow value goes up. So here, interest rates right now, if you're looking at debt for this type of a deal, are around 6%. That's what we're seeing in the space, which historically is pretty good. It's not the 3% stuff from 2021. So it's not crazy. But
just when we were getting used to underwriting at 7.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, they were a little bit higher earlier. Now they've come down a little bit. If they just stay steady or maybe come down a little bit, that's where you'll see value bumps. But projecting interest rates out 10 years is that's a little tricky. However, we do not think that they're going to be 15% in 10 years. 15% crushes a lot of real estate deals. But our goal here is, buy this thing, pay off a decent amount of the debt so we have it, and just producing cash flow.
Yeah, the nice thing, again, with the long-term predictability of the lease, you have the advantage of having the conversations with the tenant ahead of time. Like, hey, you're coming up in 2 years. Do you guys want to go ahead and start renewal conversations? Great. Now we have 2 years to decide. Are we going to put another tenant in here and then flip it? Are we going to go ahead and sell this building today so we don't even approach our debt balloon? Whatever that is, like, you just have the flexibility.
Yeah, we had a retail deal where we had about 3 years left on the lease. It was a restaurant tenant, and they were like, hey, this isn't going well. We don't think we're going to renew it. So like, okay, obviously that's bad news. You don't ever want to hear that. So basically started building more reserves. We started distributing less money. And then 18 months later, they're like, man, this store is doing really well. And we're like, well, what do we want to do here now? Do you guys want to stay and sign that longer term lease? And also that's what is going to happen there. So even though we had 3 years notice, it came back to it and it still performed well, and they're going to stay. So we're like, okay, it ended up working out in the end, and it's going to be pretty good. But a lot of those too, like there's frequently users for second, third, fourth generation space. It's not the first person that built it out, but that's why we're not really, most of the time we're not building the thing brand new. So we're buying something. So it's already a second, third, fourth generation space. You're just trying to find the best user for it.
That's right. Yeah, as long as it's in decent condition. The nice thing about that, it's like with Friars, right? We came in with this budget to renovate and flip and turn around whatever we needed to do, but it was in good enough condition to where tenants just accepted the spaces as is, right? Yeah, and sometimes you get very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, we went and just talked to the tenants. We said, hey, how is your business doing? Is there anything we can do to help? And like, well, we love some of this space over here. It's like, okay.
Easy enough.
There we go. You take it. So that was great. That deal's worked out really well. We got, it's like 98% occupied. We have a little bit of kind of dead space that we can't really lease in there, but that's only like 1.5%. So
yeah,
from model underwriting standpoint, over 95% of your base, like that is full. We always try and squeak out that extra percentage though. That's really where like a little extra points here and there, just by going from 95 to 97, 98, like that stuff matters. So we always try and get as much as we can out of it. But Friars has been great from an occupancy standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, anything above 93%, in my opinion, is a home run, right? Because you're always going to have something turning over at some time. And so for it to, that to me speaks volumes to how much the tenants love being there.
Yeah. Well, you got to come up with a fancy sign to put out front though. Something that's eye catching. And maybe we put like the giant peach from, that's coming in from like South Carolina into Georgia. Like, what do you put in there? Like, what is that thing?
That'd be hilarious. Yeah, I'm just picturing a like an old English friar, with the ball over here. Be a lot of fun. You can have some fun with it.
Yes, cool. All right, other parts we got here. We looked at, we had a busy week, busy month of looking at deals. We've got 6 that are under contract right now. So those are all deals that we're launching here in the near term and taking out. We've got one, hopefully we close in like 2 weeks. So we're going to get that one going. But all flex, all commercial. That's really where we've been seeing all the activity. We've not seen anything on apartments. That's where it just seems like there's not a lot of activity happening. Are you seeing it?
Why do you think that is today?
I think people are just a little nervous on the apartment side of things because the pro formas they're putting together are not showing. The past 4 or 5 years, it was pretty easy to model 10% rent growth. And bam, and lots of things work with 10% rent growth. 2020, 2021, 2022. I mean, a lot of this stuff was like 15, 20% rent growth. And that covers almost any issue you could have if you can get 20% rent growth. And now it's more flat. And I think people are like, man, that really, you start questioning your model of like, how am I going to do with flat rent growth for 2 or 3 years before it really kicks back up? And it makes it hard. It means you're waiting 2 or 3 years to get there. And I don't think people want to do that right now. I think they want
because
now.
I mean, you're having to underwrite on basically like a stabilized asset, even though it may not necessarily be quote unquote stabilized, right? Which is really, really tough. And if there's no value add, well, fine. Why don't we just go buy Class A apartment complexes at 5% cap rates and sit there?
Yeah,
this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and the debt is still available and in not 3%. I think that stuff's gone, but still a good debt is available in the apartment space. But I just don't think the revenue is there to make the models work. So I think that's why you're not seeing a lot of activity in the space right now. You're not seeing really anything getting bid up like crazy that it like was for the past 3 or 4 years.
No, the only activity that I'm seeing is these guys honestly handing keys back to banks, and it's the operators that went out and did adjustable rate mortgages, which I'm like, man, why would you do an adjustable rate mortgage, when rates are the lowest they'll ever be? Like I get it. You really wanted to lock in that 2.9% loan, but man, it's got to be tough swallowing 8% today when you underwrote 3%.
I feel like the adjustable rate mortgage stuff is always a trap. It's a trick. It's never just lock it in place. We've always done fixed rate mortgages. I've probably done 150 mortgages, and always, it's always been fixed rate.
Why is there an allure to the adjustable rate mortgage? I get it. You get, X amount of basis points lower than a fixed rate. But to me, I've always looked at that as like, okay, well, that's insurance to make sure that I know exactly it's going to be predictable every single month what my payment's actually going to be. I have never seen anybody, I don't think one person in the 13 years that I've been doing commercial real estate, I don't think I've ever seen anybody go out and talk about the benefits of an adjustable rate mortgage and how amazing it is. Everybody has always said, no, you got to be careful with that because of X, Y, and Z. If it goes up, it can go up overnight. But you still see these sophisticated guys go out and do that. Do you think that that's a question that limited partners should be asking whenever they're investing into these deals? Like, talk to me about the debt terms.
Yeah, it gets. I mean, the reality is the bank is a lot of the times the largest investor in the deal. Like they've got a better position than the equity people do in the deal, and they have the largest chunk of it. So they're going to get to call and they almost always are going to have a much bigger legal team than any LP that's coming in, right? That's in a some kind of syndicated non-institutional deal. So like the banks they're going to get their money. So I think you can hear as much as you want on like adjustable rate stuff not working out well, but until you're the one that's got to wire the loan payment in every month that went from 3% to 8%, nothing kicks you like that when you got to shift gears and start doing that. So it's one of those things. I mean, you read about it, you hear about it, but until you're the one actually sending that money in, that's tough. So You're like, hey, I don't even want to do that again. And then you tell everyone else you ever meet, you're like, I don't ever want to do that again.
Well, because here's the 1-2 punch on it too that a lot of people don't think about. When your interest rate goes up, yeah, of course, obviously your monthly payment's going to go up. But the other thing that you have to keep in mind is now you have to worry about your debt service coverage ratio, because if you have not been able to raise your rent substantially, you could find yourself under that 1.25 or 1.2 threshold, which means not only are your monthly payments now higher, and this is what's happening to a lot of these guys today. Not only are your monthly payments higher, the bank is coming back to you saying, it's time for you to put some money into this deal to get it back above our 1.25 debt service coverage ratio threshold. And so, imagine, imagine having to go back to your investors and say, hey, we're not going to have any money, any profit distributions because our monthly payments are now higher. And I need more money from you so that we can pay down our existing debt. That's tough.
And then also, even fixed rate though, the loans aren't forever. A lot of the loans are tied in the commercial space. They're tied to the term of the lease. So if you've got a 5-year lease, you're most likely getting a 5-year loan. So your interest rate's going to reset at 5 years. The lease is not adjustable throughout it, but it's going to reset in 5 years. So that's why talking to these tenants way ahead of time is necessary to see what can be done. We had a larger single tenant leave, and it is painful. It's like they gave us a lot of notice, but that doesn't solve the problem. So
yeah, you still got to go out and backfill it.
Yep, and figure out what's your plan. But the faster you can do using some of the AI stuff, the faster you can come up with a new plan, the faster you can do the analysis, the faster you can present options that you could give to a prospective tenant, just the easier it is to get those people in. So I think that's one of the huge things now.
Yeah,
it's got to be fast.
It's interesting. We've never had more capability than we have today in terms of the individual investor being able to do things. The amount of research that I am able to do in a 1-hour period would have been a full-time job for somebody on my team a couple of years ago. They would have had to have spent all this time going through all of these articles and pulling together all this data. And I can now go to AI and say, hey, we're looking at buying this building. I want you to do some deep research on it and let me know, based on all the criteria that you already know that I need in my investments, help me understand the pros and cons of this deal. Yeah. And it will give you sources too. You can go in and look at it yourself. It's amazing.
Yeah, we taken our OMs, we're putting together a presentation for LPs on what we plan to do with the deal, where it is, all, kind of all the basics and stuff. And then we load that back in and it's like, hey, pick this thing apart. Tell us what's wrong with this business plan. Give us feedback on what are we missing here? Why is this definitely gonna fail? And I think when you're using, you guys just got to use strong language so it gets your point across. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything, but no, that's been super helpful because that's how we just keep revamping and getting better at what we're looking at and doing.
Yeah, well, it's another set of eyes on a deal because look, we're human. It's very easy to get biased towards saying, oh, we've always done this type of deal. We've always succeeded with this type of deal. So why wouldn't that happen this time? But AI is able to go in and help you look at it from a third-party perspective of, okay, well, yeah, you have always done this deal, but here's where this one is a little bit different and why. And so you're like, okay, great. Now we need to figure out that variable. How do we solve for that?
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Cool. All right, well, hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we can line up what both of these iOS deals look like so we can get those out. I think that's kind of our timeline. We're looking at trying to put these together so we have some good information on them. Then we gotta get another trip, go back down to Texas and rewalk some of the site. Although it might have to be a while because it's 145 degrees down there right now. But
cool. Pass. How about we start investing up in Canada? What do you think about that?
Yeah,
I hear the Great Lakes are great this time of year.
Yeah, no, it's hot down here right now, but man.
Yeah, well, good. And we've got videos coming out of that as well. So you guys will be able to actually walk the site with us. You can hear us going through the conversations amongst ourselves, with our partners, with brokers. It's pretty fun. So you'll actually be able to go through the deal with us.
Yeah, and we should have that stuff out soon. So we're excited about these. And then we're also going to have the net lease deal that's coming out as well. So we'll have more details when we post on that and what the full details of it look like. So cool.
Rock and roll.
All right, Tyler, this is good. It was great chatting. Good going through stuff of what's happening here. So I know we got our next one coming up here too. We'll do another LinkedIn webinar. We'll have another office hours too. So those dates will come out and we'll post those on our socials as well so everyone's aware.
Yeah, keep an eye out for those. Cool. Jump in. Feel free to jump in the comments, ask us questions. That's what these are for, right? Happy to dive into any questions you've got going on the deals we've got going on, what's going on in the market, why Dave is the absolute madman that he is when it comes to skiing. We'll answer any of them.
There you go. Oh, cool. All right, Tyler. Well, this was fun. I think we're gonna roll.
Yeah.
Cheers. We're gonna go look at more deals this afternoon. So
let's get them done. We'll see you guys in the
All right.
next one.
All right. See you later, Tyler. Bye.
Cheers.